Peter realizes that one of the big reasons the kids hate him is because they're dying. The abnormal aging is going to destroy them in the near future, and so he has to find a way to save them and put things right. They're all that he has left of Gwen, after all. So as I said before, this whole thing was a change to how it was originally supposed to happen. The problem is that JMS's original plan for this storyline was not great. JMS's original desire for this story was for Peter to be the father. Some of you might be thinking, well, wait, why is that so bad? Better than the massive retcon that Gwen Stacy slept with a man 30 years her senior and completely revises the entire reason Norman Osborn killed her. Okay, so the big reason why One More Day happened was because Marvel felt that Peter could not divorce Mary Jane. That divorce would artificially age the character and make him less relatable. Putting aside the stupidity of all that, there is something to be said about details surrounding characters that can make them older than they're supposed to be. It's like that with Batman. DC wants him to be no older than 30 or 35, but his Robins, who were sidekicks when they were children, are also now adults. So timeline-wise, it makes no sense unless he's older. Editorial's reasoning was that if Peter Parker had two adult children hanging around, regardless of the, ooh, my superpowers cause rapid aging bullcrap, it will artificially age Peter and make him look like he's much older than he should be. And they were right. The divorce thing is just hanging on to outdated cultural understanding of 20-somethings and what relatable means these days to comic readers. But this is introducing a major aspect of the mythos that Peter has kids and they look to be the same age as him. It won't matter how you explain it, the look is not good. And that leaves you with three options. 1. Age Peter so it's not as ridiculous. This is a mainstream superhero comic book, so that's right out. Well, except for DC's 5G initiative, but we'll see how well that goes. 2. You try to shuffle them away and hope the readership forgets they exist. However, these are comic fans, so that definitely will never happen. I mean, it's 13 years later and I am still complaining about One More Day. Mind you, part of this is because Marvel is like Lucy holding the football to the readership's Charlie Brown, saying, maybe this time they'll totally undo One More Day, and then they never do. Or 3, kill them. Problem there is that suddenly you have 2 more people related to Peter who have tragically been cut down. Except this time, it's his children, and the last links he may ever have to Gwen Stacy and that tragedy. And I'm sorry, but I have to imagine that if he lost his own children, that would be the straw that broke the camel's back. Regardless of how well he knew them, how difficult it would be to separate himself from these people, especially if they come to him as adults, Peter Parker's children dying, yeah, that would be the end of Spider-Man. He would have shirked the greatest responsibility because of his powers, and he would never put on the costume again. And that's why it couldn't be him. And also just why this story was a terrible concept from the beginning. But for whatever reason, maybe JMS pushed to salvage the story, maybe the editors were intrigued by the possibilities, they went through with it and made it Norman Osborn as the father instead. Some say this is another case of Marvel not wanting Peter Parker to develop, but if that was the case, then Gabriel and Sarah should have been little kids or teenagers, not adults. Teens, at least, could have still had the accelerated aging thing and be a little more reasonable to Peter's age. Not perfect, mind you. It'd still be him looking older, but it's a development that's a little more natural and puts him in a new kind of dynamic. I'll go over some other ideas later that I feel could have salvaged this storyline, but for now, yeah, conceptually, this was a horrendous idea. The suggestion of Norman as the father is only better because it means that everyone can pretend this didn't happen when it's all over. Which, of course, they didn't, but that's a discussion for later. Issue 513's cover shows Spidey fighting Gabriel while a very veiny Green Goblin hangs over them. Not a terrible cover, but not that interesting. Although Spidey apparently decided to shoot a lot of web fluid all over the place, since I'm pretty sure he's lassoing himself here. We open to... oh wow. I guess Diodato was under a deadline crunch because this first page straight up copies and pastes artwork from the last page of the previous issue. Like, they couldn't fix this for the trade? It's 2 damn panels! What am I saying? Why would they want to put in any extra work on this story? Better question, why did they bother reprinting this story at all? Okay, anyway, they need to figure out a way to contact them. Well, it shouldn't be that hard. They're clearly following you and watching you. Just go to some place like the bridge or to Gwen's grave again. Assuming they've gotten around to reburying her and stuff. Just, like, there are very easy ways to get their attention. But no, instead, Peter calls a press conference. Yeah, just like that. And this leads to 2 pages of a humorous bit where the news team asks their resident Spider-Man expert if Spidey has ever called a press conference before. And all he has is footage of Spidey's fights. And I'm just... what?
What is the point of this thing?
So anyway, what does he say during this historic moment? Possibly the only time he could pull a stunt like this since he has never done so before? He just says... Gabriel, Sarah, meet me where I saw your mother for the last time. That is all. That's not even an exaggeration. I wish it was. Was this comic relief? In the story where Gwen Stacy thought Norman Osborn was so hot, she just had to sleep with him? More after this word from our sponsor.
This isn't funny!
This incredibly moronic idea, of course, leads to the reporters following him. Spidey arrives at the bridge. I swore long ago that I'd never stand up here again. I never wanted to see this view again. Was JMS just not aware of the hundreds of times they'd done the take 2 of saving Gwen from the bridge thing? The 2 arrive half an hour later and agree to hear what he has to say as long as there are no tricks. The news van that followed, while they can't hear what's being said, decide to go live with the story to beat out the competition, since it must be pretty important for the lengths Spidey went to. Spidey confirms with them their motivation and the fact that they're dying, thinking he's their father. He tells them that Norman was their father, but Gabe doesn't believe it, that Norman came to them and made a home for them. He saw that our brains were maturing as fast as our bodies, and he brought in the best teachers. Up yours! That is not how that works! I don't care what bullcrap you try to spin about the frickin' goblin serum or whatever in Norman's blood. Psychological and emotional maturity do not work like that! Norman trained them and told them all about him. You are my living trust, my will, and my will made manifest. Once you have done all this, then and only then will you be worthy of my inheritance, my legacy.
Is this the human condition of madness, leader? It is.
Yeah, talking about how you two are his will made manifest. That sure sounds like someone benevolent. It's a good thing your brains matured as fast as your bodies, or you might be tricked into thinking that that's friggin' narcissistic bullcrap. The cops are dispatched, worried that a fight between them will lead to potential damage to the bridge and, in turn, harm to civilians. Spidey explains about Norman's goblin formula enhancing him that was passed on to them, offering to help, but Gabe still doesn't trust him. However, Sarah does, mainly because she realized that if Peter was their father, why didn't he just check his own DNA to confirm instead of going through all the trouble of digging up Gwen? Unless he knew we couldn't be his children, because he and our mother had never, if they hadn't had sex! Look, if you're gonna persist in this nonsense about them not doing it, at least have the courage to say bump uglies or something. You end up coming across like 10-year-olds blushing and saying, oh my, you said a no-no word. Gabe can't believe that Norman would be responsible for all this, not helped by Spidey admitting that he was the Green Goblin. He finally just attacks Spidey, who doesn't fight back, but then the cops start shooting, warning them to stop, but that just confirms for Gabe that Peter's a liar because of the no tricks thing. Gabe starts shooting, so the cops resume their own firing. Peter kicks Gabe over the edge. It's a clear drop to the water below, and he's strong enough to survive the fall. That still seems like pretty flimsy reasoning, Pete. However, Sarah got shot in the side and falls over too. You know, maybe they should just install some damn safety railings on the bridge since this keeps happening! I warned you about this bridge, bro! I told you, dog! And yes, this leads to the, no, I won't let it happen again, I will save Gwen this time. You know, I think the reason that this keeps being a thing is because they can't just have him move past her death. It's just another symptom of the big Peter Parker is never allowed to mature thing. If he actually accepted her death and let his guilt get buried, it would show actual development in his character. But no, we can't have that, so let's keep shoving women off of the frickin' bridge. Peter Parker does not get to be an adult. How else would the audience relate to the guy whose supervillain nemesis had sex with his girlfriend, fathered twins, and raised the rapidly aging children in a convoluted revenge scheme on top of all the other convoluted revenge schemes he had going on?
Spider, won't you ever grow up?
Spidey takes her to a hospital and claims she was shot by a robber. Yes, help the poor innocent bystander in commando gear and hundreds of pouches. Totally a robber did this. Gabe manages to get himself to a sewer, one he was aware of already thanks to maps and information left to them by Norman. However, Norman didn't describe what this was, just that they should claim it after killing Peter. And it's 2 goblin suits. Gabe's reaction is, as expected, and thus we reach our final issue of Sins Past, number 514. And its cover is just a generic shot of Spidey hanging outside a window with the results of his web spinning around himself from the last cover. Good job, Pete. An automatic message starts up left by Norman. Hello, my children. Gabriel, Sarah, welcome. I speak to you from the shadows, or from the grave, depending on when you hear this recording. Either way, he basically lays it out that by now they know Peter and Spider-Man are the same person and have probably figured out he's their dad, but that Spider-Man is still totally responsible for her death even if he had some small part to play in it. And now, if you have performed as I trained you, then he has joined her in death. Or he has joined you at last, has taken the last step to join the family that has awaited him all these years. The family whose flesh and blood run through your bodies. Yes, I trained you to either murder him or adopt him. I make a lot of sense. Blah, 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 the goblins are your true faces. Join me and we can rule the galaxy. Whatever. MJ meets up with Spidey at the hospital, where Sarah is still in surgery. Dr. Chapin, how's she doing? Not good, I'm afraid. It's almost like someone needs to make a deal with Satan to heal her bullet wound. It's weird. Actually, the problem is blood loss. They have the correct blood type, but every transfusion they've tried has rejected it. Peter speculates it's because of her mutated goblin formula blood. It won't accept anything else. They can try to keep her alive for the next hour, but that's the best they can do. Peter doesn't know where Gabe is, and Norman's in prison, so he can't get him there in under an hour for a transfusion. He instead offers his own blood. He and Gwen had the same blood type, so it's a decent chance it'll accept his. Yes, but even if it's the same type, as I said, her blood is unusual, like nothing I've seen before. Yeah, I know, but so is mine, Doc. So is mine.
Or maybe we could just fill a syringe with false promises and inject him with that. Says here, you already got that one covered.
Yeah, this is bullcrap. Peter's blood was mutated by a radioactive spider. Sarah is the daughter of a guy who had a weird goblin formula that enhanced his strength, stamina, and regenerative capability. This is not the same thing at all. But no, instead it becomes some kind of representation of Spider-Man and Green Goblin fighting over Sarah, and it's just dumb. Back with Gabe in the recording, it says that their rapid aging is a result of the mixture of his mutated DNA with Gwen's, but he's developed a serum that will stabilize their condition. It may have unforeseen effects on your mental processing, disruptions in normal functioning, paranoia, psychosis, even some memory loss, uncontrolled sneezing, diarrhea, not just the normal kind either, but did you know your eyes can have it too? I didn't until the serum. Gabe contemplates this, especially since this is his only way of surviving the rapid aging. It's the only way. You're mine, and I'll never let you go. Never let you go. I'll never let you turn around our back on each other. That's a good idea. Break a promise to your mother. Turn around your back on each other. Gabe injects himself while Sarah survives the transfusion. Mary Jane watches over Spidey to make sure nobody unmasks him, even having stopped a nurse off panel who would try to slip a camera in too. Apparently the press is down in the lobby, with people assuming MJ is just a Spider-Man groupie, since they tend to show up whenever superheroes are in the hospital. However, Spidey realizes that if the press is there, then word might have reached Gabe about where they are. And indeed it has, as he shows up in the costume, busting in and grabbing Spidey. His official title in this is the Grey Goblin, which just makes me wonder what the hell Sarah was supposed to be called in her outfit, since that's just the Green Goblin costume, but with boobs. Did Norman sculpt those? Ew! As Norman suggested, Gabe has gone cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and carries Spidey out into the sky to repeatedly punch him. Sarah has also escaped from the hospital room and stolen a policeman's gun. Though how she knew when to do that, I couldn't say. Spidey's still weak from the transfusion. And man, I just realized that Spidey sucks in this story. I don't think he has a single successful fight in it. He just gets his ass kicked left and right or has to run away.
Greetings, Linkara. It is I, me, you, from the future. You see, Linkara, Megakara secretly had an affair with one of your fellow reviewers. The children, they were taken away so that he could raise them on his own and then return them so that—
Hey! You owe me lottery numbers, jackass! Spidey manages to get away from the Grey Goblin and lands on the hospital roof, but Sarah arrives with the gun. She aims it at Gabe and tells him to leave, that he didn't do anything to them or their mother, and in fact saved her. However, he's too far gone and shoots missiles at her. She's able to evade and shoots his glider, which starts flying out of control. It explodes, sending him to the nearby river. Sarah walks off, saying she has to go away. Spidey pleads with her to stay, but in his weakened state, he falls unconscious again, dreaming of the last conversation he had with Gwen. She mentions how they need to have a long talk, but also how she dreams of a future with him. In particular, an image of him coming home and putting his head in her lap to sleep. Yep, that totally innocent thing of a guy putting his head in his significant other's lap. No connotations there or anything. She's worried though because in this vision she can't see her own face. After all, if you're inside your own head, how do you really see yourself? Your lap is all mine, Gwen. And the rest of you ain't bad either. They banged! On the roof, MJ holds the delirious Spider-Man as he says he'll always love you. Which MJ might know that he's talking about Gwen, but doesn't seem to mind. And so our comic ends with Gabe washing up on a beach near a family who call for an ambulance to help him. What's your name? I don't remember. And you're lucky like that, Gabe. Most people wish they could forget because this comic sucks! Why does this exist? There is no need for this story to happen. This should never have gotten past the idea stage. The artwork is not the worst. It's perfectly competent and has some good moments, but there are a few hiccups here or there that make you tilt your head. No, this one is terrible for the writing. And even that is not the worst thing in the world when it comes to its dialogue, but man, oh man, the execution. It is a miserable book, wallowing in its own self-pity. And of course, darker, serious, and depressing stories can be fine, but this one is a slog to get through because it's ground we've already covered for Peter, and it wasn't done so through character assassination like this one was. The retcons are awful, introduced to service a plot that wasn't even that interesting to begin with. Two people want to murder Peter, spend most of their time pontificating on how much they hate him for pretty poor reasons, especially when they keep passing up on opportunities to kill him. The plot relies on a lot of goofy contrivances in order for it to work, and in the end, nothing is really accomplished.
We hope you've enjoyed No Moral Theater, ladies and gentlemen.
The worst part is that there isn't even really resolution. Like the Gwen Stacy clone, they just leave the door open for these characters to return, which would be fine if we wanted them to return, but who the hell would want to revisit this crap after reading it the first time? Well, apparently somebody did, because not only did the Grey Goblin reappear in another miniseries, but there was a direct follow-up to this later the same year over or in the spectacular Spider-Man title. Not written by JMS, this follow-up, Sins Remembered, is also bad, but bad in its own different flavors. We'll probably review that one down the road, but I think we've had enough of this story for now. The fact that anyone did want to do more with them is baffling to me, but it does make the creative writing part of my brain itch. Is there a way to salvage this thing? Okay, I have some ideas. First idea, don't do it at all, you idiots! Okay, seriously though. First and foremost, don't make them adults. I think part of the reason this was done was to keep it vague about how long ago Gwen Stacy died, since, you know, need to keep Peter in a certain age range and all. But there are ways around this. Making them children especially pushes how emotional and abandoned they feel. In this story, they're adults in their reasoning ability and intelligence, which just makes things more awkward and convoluted. Make them kids, maybe assisted directly by Norman Osborn or some other villain. That way, at the end, you can have them put up for adoption or something like that, and they can be shuffled off or whatever. Or hell, have Peter and MJ raise them as an adoptive father. You can do the Peter is father storyline in the main books, but eventually realize he can't be the father they need him to be, and someone else adopts them. You get story potential without the years of needing to raise a kid in book to screw up the sliding timescale. Second idea, don't make them anyone's kids. Make them clones. At this point, the comics were long trying to distance themselves from the Clone Saga, to the point where Peter saying, "I have clones," was a tongue-in-cheek joke he made a couple of times. But think about it. Have the Jackal or one of the many Miles Warren clones come up with this new revenge scheme. After all, his entire deal was supposed to be about vengeance for Gwen, so have him create some children that he artificially ages up, combining his own DNA with Gwen's. Some kind of messed up family he wants to create for himself. But the kids are either unstable, or Warren instilled this hatred of Peter Parker in them, or make them leftover experiments from the Clone Saga, but without Warren himself in it. They're more stable since he's not trying to just directly clone a human being with all their memories and artificially aged up or whatever. This way, there's no Gwen cheating on Peter with Norman frickin' Osborn and all the retcons that come with it. Third idea. If you really must have this retcon that they are totally Gwen's legitimate kids and she cheated on Peter and this whole thing is yet another needlessly elaborate Norman Osborn revenge scheme, don't make it be Norman who's the father. Make it Harry. The two are closer in age. Harry did have a bit of a crush on Gwen in the early days. You could claim that it happened during a time Peter and her were separated, or hell, maybe even during the Europe trip while Gwen was emotionally vulnerable from her father's death, and he, in turn, was having drug-related issues, and the two just needed some physical intimacy in the wake of their traumas and hardships. Both acknowledge it was a mistake and agree to never speak of it again. But Gwen becomes pregnant. She still gives birth prematurely, but Norman learns about the kids and claims to Gwen that they're dead, but he actually spirits them away for his stupid plan. He mutates them with the Goblin formula to cause the rapid aging. Sure, it's not a great solution, but it's better than, "Oh, Norman was just so mysterious and hot, take me now!" Regardless of any solution that can be thought of, it's just not a good story. It sucks. And I completely understand why JMS wanted one more day to erase it. Let's end this with a clip from JMS's masterpiece, Babylon 5, that I think sums up this entire thing.
What was it all for, I wonder? What was any of it for?
600 episodes, my friends, and I am not slowing down even after this long. Come back next time for another month of movie adaptations. Specifically, Star Wars Prequels Month. All of them have better stories than Sins Past.
Are you done yet? You've been nerd screaming about this for hours.
Yeah, I'm done, unfortunately.
Why?
Well, I wrote this big elaborate skit about one of my fellow reviewers having an affair with one of my villains and the kids coming back to get revenge on me, you know, parodying the comic and all that. But the comic is so bad that nobody wants to participate in it, so the whole joke is ruined.
I don't see what the big deal is.
I know, right?
I mean, me and Lord Vice slept together, nothing weird about it.
Exactly, Wait, what?
but Quesada sold them to Mephisto, and now there's nothing left to do but share the scrapings at the bottom of the barrel with you. Linkara, he's a man who punch sporadically a grouch. Linkara, he has his own spaceship, but he's always on his couch. Linkara, ghosts, gods, a universe in flux. Linkara, this comic sucks.
Since cats always lie, and everyone knows cats can't speak, then the truth is that they can speak, and do all the time.
That's totally inapplicable to anything that's going on here. And it's dumb.
Doing a cameo. Fat Grandma's your grandma, in canon. Can't erase it. I created her, I know what her origin is. Go see Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. I saw Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. It was better than this. I'm just gonna say. Having not read the comic, the plot sounds pretty bad. It didn't have any wacky inflatable arm guy coming out of someone's chest.